All right, so thank you, everyone, for coming to Orange Lake's meeting today of the Lake Board on May 25th. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, so we'll start with reviewing of the posted meeting notices.
Yes, they're the documents behind item 2 in the packet, and they were posted at the required locations in a timely fashion, and this meeting is in order, and thank you, Tom, for making that happen.
Perfect.
Is there a packet that I should
You can share. That was emailed to you and posted earlier today.
All right, I missed it.
If you want, you can use mine and I'll just go along with this, because you actually do a lot of the presentation. I get to chair it, but he's the captain. All right, so next we'll offer public comment. So if anybody would like to come on up and speak right here at the podium, just tell us your name. Right into the microphone, though, because this is on cable.
This one or this one?
That one.
That one, right where you are now.
I'm Roy Anania at 3200 Chickering. Now, is this minutes, or comments or questions?
So it's a comment.
Do we do this afterwards?
This is the comments and questions for the Lake Board, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We can have a discussion afterward, too, not in a quorum setting, but, I'm...
Sure. I don't see the Lake Pro guy.
We tried hard.
Okay.
Yep.
Because some of the comments I have, like the water test that is in the agenda, it's for last year. And they do it in May, and it would help, have this be a more productive meeting if we have something current. Because right now the lake has a lot of algae. It's not clear, it's not clean. So this nice glowing test isn't really, isn't applicable. So moving on, I have a question about, okay, you want to, suddenly after 20 years, you want to tack on, well, it says $4,000 in your budget, but the quotes are for $1,800 for D&O insurance. So my question there is, after 20 years, why now?
That will definitely be highlighted, I promise.
So I know the copper sulfate's the deal.
That's the deal.
So, and then one of the other things is the Ruggiero for $1,250. Is that still going? That's a question.
We'll address that, too.
We're writing them all down.
Yep.
That's only, I bring that up for two reasons. One is it's only a very small area around Barry's. It was like a test site.
That's what it was.
And there's industrial strength companies that do the same thing. And they do it nationwide. And we might want to look into that.
Okay.
Because the guy was out a few years ago, looked at the lake. So
Yeah.
I know the guy.
Okay.
That's pretty much, let me just check my notes real quick. I see I have 3 seconds.
We can,
Yeah,
we can give you, there's
looks
not
like
a
you're-
big
There's a
line.
lineup.
There's not a big line, so I think you're fine. No,
no
that's usually when
sharing.
there's a lot of people.
No.
Well, we're going to just give you some extra time. There's not a big line, so you're fine.
I think that's it. Yeah. Covered it all. Thank you.
Oh, see, it would have been done. See? Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up? Come on up.
My name is Cece Lipsky, and I live on Chickering Lane. My question is, I know we spend all this money to clean the lake. However, we have neighbors that are able to water their grass from the lake. And I want to know, do you supervise what type of fertilizer they use? And I know the only thing I could find in the township ordinance is that their sprinkler system has to be 25 feet away from the lake. However, there are older homes that have sprinkler systems that are close to the lake. So my question is, do you supervise that? Because we pay this money to keep the weeds down, and I don't know if our neighbors are fertilizing the lake and feeding the weeds. Like Roy said, we have an algae problem. Well, what's causing it? So, and I know years ago you Gloucester High School, their football field, for fertilizing their football field because they were feeding the lake. So you stop them, however, you don't check in with the neighbors that are watering the lake. And then I find out, well, I think you might think this is petty, they don't have a water bill. I have a water bill. I pay my water bill. They don't have a water bill if they're watering their lawn. So to me, that's a wash. I mean, I'm paying my money, my lien, my money yearly, and to me, I don't think that's fair either. You may think that's petty, but that's my complaint. But I would like you to check in on the fertilizer part. If they're going to water their lawn, I think the township have, for all the lakes, just not Orange Lake, but for all the lakes that the township is responsible for, to find out what type of fertilizer that they're using. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And my timer never went on.
We weren't gonna shut you off.
I have one, it's kind of
Go ahead, I mean, there's
I'm okay.
nobody
Come
else
on.
here. Come on,
Let's-
normally
let's-
we don't, but there's, like we said, not a big
hear it,
line.
The middle school, I don't know if anybody on the board reviewed the plans for the underground, but what I noticed was...
Is this about Orange Lake?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, okay. Just want to make sure it wasn't about building the schools.
No,
Okay.
well, it should have been on the school plans, and I was going to stop by building and see, but there's underground, there was underground that went from the school to the west, and it emptied out into a pathway to the lake, and it also went south. There was a pipe going under the visitor bleachers. There was a pipe that went all the way to there's a walkway that's asphalt, and it went underneath that, and it went to the ditch that then went off into the waterways to wherever. So I noticed that that's all blocked where the visitor bleachers were. That pipe is blocked off. And there's only, so you have this big pipe coming out of the school area. So it's the parking lot. It's everything that's to the east of the football field. So, and it comes down and it goes straight towards Orange Lake. So whatever they're doing over there, all that water is washing into the lake on the east side where it's a very, you know, you can't really treat it that well because it's so shallow. So it's just more weeds and stuff coming in. So you might want to check, you know.
If I might, what are the drainage?
Wait, Barry, we wait till the discussion
sorry.
part.
Okay.
First, we take all the questions, and then we, yeah. But-
Thanks, Ray.
Big question.
Okay. do you want to move up
We've got our
this part of new
last
business, or do you want to
business.
just do this part of, when we answer, do you want to just do it part of the budget part? Because some of these are budget related and some aren't.
I live on Chicken Lane. I have a question indeed. I live the other side of the lake. We have access to the lake. In the past, there was a picnic table. I don't know whether it was installed by the city or by the community, neighborhood community. It's been removed, I mean now.
So
Can
just
we
so everybody
reinstall it
knows,
again?
this is not a public lake. The township doesn't do anything. If you all want to make it a public lake, I would gladly come and put in a boat dock. But
Yeah,
we
but there
don't
was.
put anything out there. That means that someone in the community did it.
Oh,
Because we
okay.
cannot spend our public dollars on your private lake.
Oh,
So as here, we're as the lake board, but as a township representative, I can't spend money on your lake. This is actually, the people who live on the lake fund the lake board, and you're paying for your own lake. But the township wouldn't be putting out
I
any,
just wonder whether it was installed before by the city
no,
or just by the
definitely not.
community. Oh.
No, we don't put any public dollars towards private infrastructure. Yeah, so any lakes that do that, usually a person who lived there maybe wanted it, or somebody from the HOA maybe. Yeah. So for answering these, do you want to do them during the,
We could talk about them now, I
want
think.
to just go ahead and add a
Sure,
talk?
I'm fine with that. So,
Because I know some of these are going to be during the
We're gonna
budget.
kinda talk about
Like this one's
them
at the
again.
budget, so why don't we wait till the budget time and address everything?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, because some of these are budget related.
yeah.
All right, so we will address all the questions at the budget time, because most were budget related, then we'll address the others at the same time. So next we have the business meeting minutes of May 31st. We've all had a chance to look them over. Unless there's any questions or suggestions, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Barry Barber. Support. Support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Next is to review the 2022 lake maintenance.
So in the packet behind item number 5 is the 2022 water quality report. Has been noted, it is for last year. And Lake Pro, has been invited for those lakes and where they perform services, they are asked to be here to provide a report. They have been unable to attend, not just this one, but others. And in fact, I think the primary reason is that, as some individuals have left, including the individual who did this report last. So Tyson Woods is no longer with Lake Pro.
Oh, he's not either.
No, right? Is it Tyson? Yes. Yeah. So Barry and I had a conference call with Lake Pro about, 6 weeks ago, where we reviewed this when we were coming to the office.
Yeah.
So, so I can say that, members of the lake board, Barry and I, Tom, met with Lake Pro and discussed the report, which at that time was very good. We reviewed other options about additional treatment or different treatments, and nothing was surfaced at that time. But so I'm sorry they're not here today, but I can report that when we reviewed this report, Barry and I had a call and discussed the matter with them. So it's we are watching it and monitoring the contractor. So I don't know if there's any. This is just a report. We don't need to vote on or accept it. It's just a matter for information. It's in the
When's their
packet.
next treatment? Because I know a lot of the lakes have such high algae because we had such an easy winter and things grew. But do they have an upcoming treatment coming up?
They don't give us the schedule ahead of time in terms of when they're going to be here, but they usually mark when they have been there. They tie things to the trees and so forth to notify people that they shouldn't swim for 48 hours or something like that. But I've got 2 messages into them. I haven't heard back, and I'm a little bit concerned. I understand businesses are having a hard time getting people to work, but it's impacting us, not in a significant way, but that new law that came into effect, passed by Department of Environmental Quality, that prohibits copper sulfate from being used in the lake in the months of May and June. And I was shocked to look out about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, And the lake, especially on the south side of the lake, looked horrible. I mean, there was this green crap from one end to the other, and it's probably 30 or 40 yards wide of algae, or what a bloom of algae it appeared to be. And I was alarmed by it, called them, I couldn't get a hold of anybody, but, and I'm going to continue to try, but that's a function of not being able to use copper sulfate in the months of May and June. And it showed up on a day that there was like no wind. It was completely flat. On days that it's windy or even a moderate wind, I'm unable to tell now. I haven't seen anything, but it's that's the function. That's the cause of it. Is our inability to use copper sulfate like we always have. And I was hoping to talk to Lake Pro to get you can apply for a waiver, and I would support that approach to it, just to have it, because it doesn't sound like it's a big deal or anything overly significant, but maybe in some bigger lakes, but not in our lake. So that's just a film at 11 type of thing. I'm waiting to get a hold of them and talk to them and, learn more about what they're doing this year.
Another thing I was just asking Martin too is, since some of these were about water quality and fertilizer and such, if you guys are open to some of these, we could discuss these
Sure.
now. So to the question of, do we monitor, again, these are private lakes, so typically the people monitor each other and kind of tattle on each other when they see somebody using fertilizer. Do you know if there are people who are using fertilizer, which also would affect the lake?
Well, I trust what you said. I'm sure that's the case.
If you
And they're
have,
supposed to, I believe, they're not supposed to fertilize within either 20 or 25 feet of the shoreline. I think that's the rule.
so if you do see someone doing it, you should call ordinance, because that would fall under that, right? Like, we only have 2 people that cover 18,000 parcels, and we definitely don't cover private parcel area like that. But the lakes typically monitor each other, where we got a call on one lake where somebody said, hey, somebody's out here doing this and this.
Yeah.
With proof, we can go out and give ordinance for that.
What more do you need than what she just said? I mean,
They would need address and
date,
proof, yeah. Like,
details.
while they're doing it, say, hey, come over here to this address, they're fertilizing the lake right now,
gotcha.
and then our ordinance.
What kind of fertilizer?
We can talk
We can
after.
talk
Yeah,
after.
public comment, it was earlier, but we can have them talk after, but when it's
Give us the address.
yeah,
After the meeting.
I also
Yeah.
believe that some of the lake boards that include a mailer.
we can do something like that.
Yeah,
We
just
can
a-
send out a mailer about what's allowed and not allowed. Didn't we do that on one of the others that had some trouble with people fertilizing? Was it Forest Lake?
Meadow, we had a long conversation about Meadow, too.
Somebody had something too where people were doing this incorrectly, and we sent out a letter to the people on the lake saying that you can't do this stuff.
Okay.
And I think didn't it list like what's allowed, what's not allowed, where it is, or something we could.
Could be. We'll
If it exists, we'll
work on
send
that.
it.
Yeah.
In regard to your question about them not getting, they're using lake water. That's why they're not getting billed. You're not using lake water, and that's why you get a bill.
Yeah, people are allowed, do you want to explain how people are allowed to water from the lake?
Yeah, as a
Yeah.
part of the riparian rights of waterfront ownership, you have the ability to draw water as long as you're not interfering with other people's reasonable use. So there's, it's part of the property right, and I don't believe there's any township regulation per se against drawing water. And with regard to the school, maybe action was taken because of the runoff. I don't recall the specifics of that. It could have just been brought to their attention and then they ceased it voluntarily. I don't know the specifics of it, but as a general proposition, as a waterfront owner, you're able to draw water from the lake.
Went through a permit. So that's, if this is one of the new builds, it would be best for someone to go down to permitting to the building, and you can see the new stormwater, because some of it was very outdated in the 60s and 70s. We didn't have the same protections we have now. So when you're applying for a permit now, you have to go through Eagle, which is under the Department of Environment, and you have to go through us, and there are rules where you can't dump things into lakes like you could have before, so if something was blocked off, it was likely required by Eagle to be blocked off, and now there are plans down there anyone can see that have gone through engineering, the state and Eagle and everything to show where things will go further. But that's something that we don't vote on or look at. That's something that would go through the township. But down in the building and planning, anybody can look at the plans for any of those schools.
I believe the plans came to the township board, too. I seem to recall.
Yeah, but not the lake board.
Not the lake board.
No, the lake
township
board doesn't have
And
anything
the
to
building
do with
department
that.
did that.
Yeah.
To be clear, I was referring to the comment regarding the school had been watering, sprinkling a sports field, and they stopped. There was also a comment about the drainage.
And that drainage stuff.
I believe that the drainage plan, being a school, typically the state monitors school construction. It's not really
No,
subject to...
we actually do that. So they go through us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually have a
Okay.
contract with the Bloomfield schools. So instead of the state, which had even lower requirements than us, they have to go through us as well. So they did go through the state, they go through us, they went through Eagle. And this one, I distinctly remember that they were putting things where they shouldn't have, and because they went through us, we were allowed to help stop that. But that's all going to be available downstairs. Those are all public documents.
Yeah, so the drainage, my recollection is the drainage systems that we approved are much more robust than they've ever been as far as protecting the water, the lake.
Yeah,
So, but it's available in the township, in the building department.
yeah.
So we addressed the fertilizer. But also, with regard to the fertilizer, I mean, we have information on our website, and there's a lot of information about maintaining a natural waterfront. I was on the lake just this week looking at it, and most homes have grass right up to the edge of the lake, which is not ideal for maintaining the quality of the lake, because even if following the ordinances, you know, some of that fertilizer is undoubtedly getting into the lake. It's a problem in all of our lakes that it's a vicious cycle. People are feeding their lawn, which also feeds the lake, which then they weed harvest and they treat, and it's, you know,
Yeah, but there's,
Stacy over there is smirking a little bit, thinking, oh, this is going on everywhere in Oakland County. And it
there's
is.
provisions on our lake that you can't fertilize within, I think, 20 feet or
Yeah, and
25
it's
feet.
still, I mean, that's not, that's the minimum, that's the floor. It's not really what's the ideal. Ideal is on top of that, having a natural shoreline, you know, versus a grass right up to the edge. But-
Okay.
So sprinkler systems from the lake, yes, that's allowed. It's legally allowed. Fertilizer, the regulations, we've talked about the ordinance enforcement. No water bill, we talked about that. The drain from the school, we talked about that. And we're going to talk about insurance and Rigoro when we get to the budget.
Yeah. Those are the only ones that I had. If anyone else had any
Yep.
other.
And we'll put in the mailer a reminder about the rules concerning fertilizer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next we'll go on to the expenditures since last review of May 27th, 2022 to May 25th, 2023.
Great, those are item number 6 in the packet. And there are 2 things here, one a table which summarizes the expenses and then the actual detailed ledger. And in accordance with a prior board resolution, these items are paid if they are in accordance with the budget and existing contracts, and then confirmed by the Lake Board at the next meeting. So our last meeting was May of last year, and here we are to review the expenditures that have occurred since that time. And if are there any questions about these expenditures?
Anyone have any questions? No?
You know, most of them are to Lake Pro, by the way, so.
Yeah. So if there are no questions, I'd look for a motion to confirm.
So moved.
Motion by J.C. Garrison, support by Barry Barber. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Next, we have reviewing the 2022 revenues, expenses, and fund balance report.
That is an item behind number 7, and this is just for informational purposes. At the beginning of last year, and the budget year for the Lake Board is April 1 to March 31st. So So as of March 31st, 2023, in the last year, the Lake Board has collected $18,570 in assessments and penalties. Spent just over $15,500, and so added about $2,900 to the fund. Item number
Trying to find it.
7.
7 is the
Wait a minute.
review. 7's the review.
7, yeah. So the current reserve fund balance is $15,200, just over that amount.
Okay, so do you want to, oh yeah, this isn't
wanna-
budget time.
You found it, Mary?
Pardon me?
You found it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You're going to go on to the delinquencies?
If you're
Once-
ready, you
If
can
there's
wait if
no
you want.
questions, then we can go ahead and go on to the next, because these we don't have to actually vote on. There's no questions?
Right, we can,
All right, let's go to the next one. So now we can review and certify the delinquent 2022 assessments to the assessor.
so item number 7 is, sorry, number 8, thank you, are the delinquencies. So every year, there's an assessment that comes out from the Lake Board, a due date in the assessment. If they're not paid on time, there is a penalty for each month that they're paid late. If they're not paid by the end of the year, they are certified to the assessor, I'm sorry, to the treasurer, who then adds it to the township tax bills. And this is a report of that activity from the fall of this past year, as far as late assessments and so forth, and referral to the treasurer for collection. According to standing Lake Board resolution, this the authority of the Lake Board to certify delinquencies is delegated to the supervisor, so that can happen on a timely basis, and then we here at the board review it and not certify, but review and confirm. There we go. So all the items about any delinquencies are right in front of you there.
I'm quite sure there should be carry-forward balances from past delinquencies that weren't paid. A lot of these people just have never paid them.
Well,
They
go
are
to the county.
all, so
Sorry.
if it doesn't get paid on time to us, and then what happens is it goes on our tax bills. And
What do you mean it goes on our tax bill?
goes on, I'm sorry, the township's tax bills.
So you would pay it through
And
your
then it's
taxes?
collected then. If they don't pay their taxes, it goes to the county, and the county will collect it. But I think when it goes to the county, doesn't the county send us those funds? Yeah, so within the same budget year, we're getting the assessment one way or the other.
Oh, so if they disregard what we're sending out annually,
It gets added to the township tax bill.
And then there's,
their personal tax bills, and they got to pay it that way.
Yep.
and then if it goes, isn't there a percentage fee per month to that they don't pay?
Yes.
So it'll get collected, it's just a matter of if they want the least amount of fees, pay it right away, and then the longer someone waits, the more the fees
If it's
get.
paid, for people that are just neglecting and blowing off their lake, is Orange Lake getting the funds that they pay through the township? They are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be honest, some people do it on purpose, and I know it sounds strange, but some people just want to pay their taxes twice a year and not deal with also this.
Yeah.
So they will purposely let it go onto the taxes and then just pay it then.
Okay.
So
As long as we're getting
it's
it.
pretty common to see quite a few names on there.
And an extra $70 for late fees.
Yeah. So, and all those fees show up in.
They do.
In that as well.
That's the item behind item number 7.
Yeah, the township's just a pass-through.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've had a chance to look those over. Unless there's any other questions, I'd look for a motion.
Motion we approve?
Motion by Barry Barber,
Support?
support by J.C. Garrison. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. So next we go to the insurance quote. You want to
so-
start explaining like why?
Sure. This is an
Yeah.
item in the packet. This is D&O, or Directors and Officers Liability Insurance. And we have a quote for just almost $1,900. In the past year, 2 lake boards have been been sued within the township. They were, we believe, completely frivolous. Both of them have been dismissed, but both of them meant that the lake board incurred legal fees. In one of the cases, they sued not only the lake board, but the riparian individually. The lake board has previously not carried insurance, as has been mentioned, but in these days and times, it seemed, and based on our experience, it seemed prudent to add it. Of note, too, by the way, is the lake board is simply the riparians. So
Yeah.
in those cases where the lake board was sued by one of the riparians, the fees, there was an additional assessment to pay for the attorney's fees. So if this insurance not only protects the board, but then it protects the residents from the potential of having to pay legal fees if the board were sued. And so that's why we're adding insurance. The number's above the $2,000 number because we're also authorizing and investigating general liability insurance in addition to D&O, directors and officers. So they cover different things. And the budget reflects funds that our insurance agent has advised would be sufficient to cover not only the D&O insurance, but also G&L insurance. This is the same quote that was, by the way, farmed around competitively, and efforts were made to get different quotes. So there was a competitive process to come up with this number and this organization.
Because one of the things that may have stopped some from wanting to bid is because there have been some frivolous lawsuits.
Right.
And that's the thing, that people mistake this thinking this is the township, but when we're sitting here as a lake board, and when you're coming from the county, you're coming as lake board. So a lot of times when people haven't taken care of their own private structures, they think, well, let's just sue the lake board. They have empty pockets, not thinking they literally just sued themselves. So, and all their neighbors. So this $1,900 is what, about a tenth of the cost of the legal fees so far on that lake?
Well, if you put the two together, for sure, maybe. But
Isn't it about
it's
20 grand
it's close
for both of them?
But for both of them combined, yeah, it is. But
Yeah, so
it's-
even if you took the
highest one's a
one,
little lower than that.
13, was it 13?
I think so.
So instead of the $13,000 of legal fees to prove that it never should have happened, we will now have $1,900, and you won't have to worry about having your name on a lawsuit. So it saves everybody money, and is something that on other boards, typically, you wouldn't want to sit on a board without this.
Yeah.
No, the HOA probably has insurance. I imagine the HOA has D&O insurance.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I would be
My
very
HOA
careful.
does.
Yeah, I personally only sit on boards when there is insurance to protect you because of today's society.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it.
Yeah, so this, and it's much cheaper than the lawsuit to prove it never should have happened. So,
Do you need a motion?
or is this part of just reviewing for the budget?
This is part of reviewing for the budget. We do, in approving the budget, we'll be approving the retention of insurance.
Okay.
Right. So we'll move then next into the adoption of the budget. So we'll go through that. I mean the empirical we, of course, I mean you.
Yes, I understand. I understand. So the budget is behind item number 10, categorized into the $16,000 for the water treatment, $4,000 for business operations, which includes the insurance, both G&L and D&O, $1,500 for just reserve. We don't know what might happen. For a $21,500 proposed budget this year. That would require a little bit of dipping into the fund balance this year. But as you can see, we made a deposit of the fund balance last year, and it's a healthy fund balance.
Are there any questions on these?
I guess my only comment would be that there were years in the early stages of this lake board that we were even in, operating at a deficit. I mean, now we've accumulated a balance of over 15,000, which that's as high as it's ever been that I can remember. Maybe for next year's budget, we considered lessening the amount of the assessment annually by some figure, call it maybe $100 or some such number, to just because we don't need to accumulate a large balance that we're not going to use.
Right.
Is this outside of the
assessment-
statutory requirement? Because you do have a statutory requirement that you had to have that you guys didn't have of 10 to 15%?
10 to 15%, it's
15%.
a little
Is
bit
this-
high, so that
So we
it
could,
will be taken into
Yeah.
effect at the next project, which I believe this one is currently through 2024, so the next
so.
assessment
would come down. then.
issue would be addressed then.
Okay.
Okay?
So as it builds to the 15%, you need to go lower to make sure you don't go over 15%.
I got it.
You have to
15% of what?
Your,
Project.
Project.
meaning like your budget,
Right.
Okay.
10 to 15% of your budget, the
Yeah,
minimum.
we're way over that. 15th.
The project is a 4-year
Yeah.
project, so the total project
Times
is like, I did the math earlier, it was like 70,000, and 10% of that was, I think it was around 14, was
10% is
15%.
77.
15% was at around 14, if I recall correctly. I can do it again.
All right.
Yeah, so we are a little high, I agree, and
we can go
we
down.
can spend it down. This was a 4-year assessment, and I think we've got this year, and I believe also next year before the assessment comes up
So
again.
then the next one would be able to
Okay.
go down.
Yeah, I think we ought to, just make note of that so we address it next year in the minutes, if we could.
Absolutely. Tom? He's shaking his head.
As it stands
Got it.
corrected, it was, 15% was 11,100.
So they can come down for the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And by the way, we've taken, in this budget, we've removed the Rigoro. Even as recently as last week, I made an effort to contact them to, seek some evidence that their product is actually making a difference with regard to the muck.
Yeah.
They've not even bothered to respond, and your observations are that it's questionable if anything has happened. So
The first
they're
year,
not in the budget for this year or the.
good, that's fine with me.
Did you notice any change or no?
I insisted that the guy measure it and then measure it the following year, and I think he said that the muck was 8 inches less deep than it was the prior year, and there's no way to document that was true or not. I don't know. But if they're not calling back, just dump them. We don't need them. I'd like them to get their equipment off my property, right by my dock. You saw it the other day.
Did.
But anyway, if you happen to hear from them, please ask them to do that. I'll remove it to the dumpster.
Are there any other questions or concerns about the budget? Thanks for pointing out the fund balance, because we can address that. If not, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by J.C. Garrison,
Support.
support by Barry Barber. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And then, do we have any other new business? No? Nothing
I don't
else?
think so.
Okay. Then our last motion is a motion to
Oh, I
adjourn.
move we adjourn.
Motion by Clerk Brooke,
Support.
support by Barry Barber. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.